So, welcome to the Sunday Sect Show. And why do we call it that? Well, for us XJWs that come out, we realized that we were in a sect, a religion. It was a sect of the Christian religion, basically, an offshoot of the Catholic Church. All these sects came about, and the Jehovahs Witnesses are one of the sects. So we are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. So if for those of you who do not know me, I was in the organization for some 30 years. I got baptized when I was in 1982. And it was then, 6 months later, they put you, no, it was at the baptism that they actually put you at the assembly. They would give you a little assembly part, they kind of build you up. But 6 months later, I was disfellowshipped. And I wasn't going back. But I had met a girl, and so she was raised in the Jehovah's Witness organization. And she was in what they call an unbaptized publisher. So, of course, we couldn't get married. And then, in them days, they disfellowshipped unbaptized publishers back then. And so we were both disfellowshipped for 6 months, and then we got reinstated. I was going to quit, but she thought the end was coming. The end was coming. And, excuse me, that's what everyone thinks, right? Back in 1981. So I didn't know anything about 1975 when I was learning the Jehovah's Witness religion. I knew nothing. I was just blind. I was just like walking into this. All I could see was a paradise. Now, all those years being in the organization and living a life in it, raising a family in it, and then leaving after 30 years. And I left in 2012, so that was 30 years later. And it was after I'd left, I didn't leave mentally, if you know what I mean. If you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness, you know what I mean. I think it's different than Mormons and other religions. Like the indoctrination is very, very deep. And it's layers, and that's what I'm finding a year later. I'm finding that there's layers. But once we get out and get enough of these layers off, and we can get out and see things, it really changes things. And but I want to talk about my journey a little bit, because to get out is a tough thing mentally and even physically. So I wasn't sure what to do at the time. I wasn't sure if I was going to go back, because at the time I was disgruntled with people. Mainly, I was blaming it on people. I wasn't blaming it on the religion at all. In fact, I thought these people just weren't following God's rules, And but anyways, I was disgruntled enough to leave, and there was a separation of everything in my life. And so then there was a point in time where I was, I felt abandoned, I felt like a victim, I guess. I started drinking lots. And, but anyways, my uncle, my worldly uncle, my mom's brother, and all my family, it was worldly. I came into the organization as a worldly person. So I had worldly family. But the problem is, once we get into the organization, and I was in there for 30 years, we abandon our family. I didn't realize it, but I was abandoning my worldly family because they were worldly. And, we were always so busy with the preaching work and the Sunday meetings and Saturday service and then Tuesday night meetings. And in them days, there was Thursday night book study. And then we get up early for Saturday morning field service, and you get all your kids dressed up to go. Winter, sun, rain, you'd always show up, faithfully. That's who we were. And, it was just a way of life. It just became a way of life. Didn't really question it. But through the process, now I see that it was segregating me from all my worldly families. There was nothing in the religion encouraging me to keep my ties and to keep my bonds with my worldly family. In fact, the religion taught me to abandon the worldly ways and to abandon my family, and that Jesus came to cause division. And they go on and on about this, and how my worldly family would have birthday parties, they would have Christmas, and my mom was always big on Christmas, but of course we could never go there on Christmas. And so that all got lost. It just became lost 30 years ago. We lose all of that. So the danger is when you walk out, you've got no one, because we've now abandoned all of those worldly ties. And my wife now tells me, and I remarried, and I want to talk about this a little bit, because my good wife, I call her on this channel, she picked me up. I was just broken up pieces on the street. She met her. My uncle encouraged me to go volunteer country dancing. That's what he said. And I like dancing. We didn't do enough dancing as Jehovah's Witnesses. It was always meetings and assemblies, and we're going to talk about assemblies in a bit here. But it was always meetings and assemblies. So we didn't get time to really, go to a nightclub. When's the last time you went to a country nightclub and went dancing? Just had a few beers and took a taxi home. Jehovah's Witnesses don't get to do that, because it's the worldly. It's part of the world, right? So, anyways, I was lost at the time, and regardless, my uncle said to me, he said, "Here's a couple clubs. You go down to this club. There's a blues club." So he gave me a name of the blues club in Edmonton. So I went down. They call it White Avenue, and I go down on White Avenue, and White Avenue is where all the shootings are. Well, not really. I shouldn't say that. White Avenue is a cool place if you know Edmonton, and it's very original. It's all the original buildings when Edmonton was built, and they restored a lot of it. And my good wife here, when I met her, she told me, and by the way, I met her volunteer dancing at an outdoor concert out by Darwell, way out by a suburb, way out by Edmonton in a country. And they'd pull in all these country stars, and they'd have an outdoor concert. Not a big one. And she lived next to it, never ever went, hated country music. Like, I don't know if she hated it, but never went. But her girlfriends got her to go, and I was there volunteer dancing. And next thing you know, we had numbers, and we met. And the rest is history. And that's 2012, 2013. It was right out the gate. I was lost that summer. I was completely lost. And then all of a sudden, this lovely lady appears in my life. And of course, I'm not telling her anything about the JW stuff, because that would scare her away. So I kept it locked up inside my head. And she knew I was, I said, I'm ex-JW, and she didn't think much of JWs. She said I had an old guy call on me, and he was nice, and I took the magazines. That's what she'd say. That was her story. And she's completely different on this now. And anyways, she was not really raised religion, but at a young age, she decided to learn about religion, and she... in her community, there was a Catholic church, and she respected the minister and so forth. And so she pursued that at a young age, grade 5 or something like that, and studied the whole thing and got baptized. Mind you, she'll never talk about her smarts, but I can't, and I'm allowed to. But she's very talented, so she's bilingual, and she went into a bilingual school. And here in Canada, we have 2 languages. We have French and English. And if you're smart enough, you can learn both languages. I wasn't smart enough hardly to learn English. So sometimes you see my English is broken. I'm learning it better. As a Jehovah's Witness, though, we did do a lot of reading, and we really have no excuse, but I found out now I wasn't the best Jehovah's Witness, I think. And the more I'm learning on this side of the fence, I was kind of a little bit of a rebel all the way through. And it started right after 6 months when I got disfellowshipped. And I really didn't respect the religion after that. And I did it for love. I guess it was a search of love. And that's a whole nother story. But I stayed in it all those years for my family. And I did learn lots. I could have been doing other things. And we're going to talk about this. And today we're going to talk about it. It's a subject called regret. Have you ever felt regret? We're going to talk about belief. We're going to talk about a journey. You see, I got cards here, eh? That's what happens. You get cards. I'm a puppet. I got these cards. Some of these subjects come from you guys. So on this show, we want this to be open, and this is a show where you can send in your chat. You can even come in. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I want to get back to my good wife. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. I got this card right here. And I wouldn't be doing this show right here tonight. Even with all the knowledge I have, with all the shows I've done so far, I wouldn't be on this show today if it wasn't for her. That's just the way it is. Like after a while, you become like one. And I understand that. I've never ever understood that before like I do now outside of religion. Inside a religion, it seemed like there was always a loyalty to the elder body or the governing body. I would sometimes, as a Jehovah's Witness, I would sometimes fight the governing body at home. You know, I'd say, I don't agree with this. I would go against it. I would write letters to circuit overseers when they're in town. And I'd get counseled by elders that you're never gonna be an elder. I was told that right out the gate. They told me you'll never be an elder. So I guess so. They did let me be a regular pioneer way at the end. That's another story. So I play a part. Let me have a drink here. I play a part on my show. If you look at my series, and I think I can take you to. I put a little screen up. We changed our studio around. And like I say, my good wife, she's my production manager, so I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. And I call her a maze. A maze. You know what a maze is? A maze is something that is just... Jesus is like a maze for a lot of us. Or maybe if you're the governing body, the Apostle Paul is a maze. You know, just to understand how he ran all these congregations and spread it throughout the world. Apostle Paul, if I want to start a religion, Apostle Paul is going to be my maze because I want to build this. And Paul shows you how to clean the congregation out and do all kinds of stuff.
Excuse me, what was that word you were using?
Maze.
Do you mean muse?
Muse. Well, okay, I said that wrong. I spelt it wrong.
I told him I could interrupt you on that one.
So she's a muse. Okay, now that we have her here, come on back. What does a muse really mean? What is the definition of a muse?
Like something that inspires you.
Yeah, inspiration. So I was using it right. I just said, you see my English. You see, if it wasn't for my good wife, I wouldn't be here. I'd look like a crazy guy. But she keeps me in line, and she allows me to do a certain amount of craziness. Not everything I want to do. But she's my muse, my wife. And she's really helped me along on this journey of healing. And it's been a interesting journey, and that's why we're sharing it. It's interesting, and we want to know about your journeys, and everybody's journey is different. And it's interesting when we get to know people out there that are like me. I don't know. Maybe no one's like me. No one's like you. No one's like you or you. We're all kind of unique. Let's say that for a bit. We're all unique, but we're all the same in many ways. So that's true enough, right? So my wife was able to see something in me, and she said, one day I'm going to put you on TV and you're going to be... No, she didn't say that. But anyways, we everything clicked, and you know how that is. It just clicks, and we go through life. We go through 10 years of life. It's a long time. And I'm still not really telling her a whole lot of JW stuff because that's my history. That's past. But is it? I'm waiting. Does it go away? You see, the more research I do on what it does to our brain, and in deep indoctrinations, what they do to our brain, sometimes through our whole lifetime, those indoctrinations do not go away. We somehow inside believe that all of this stuff might happen. So I remember when I left the organization 2012, and every year an old friend in the organization, he'd meet up. We'd meet up sometimes on the highway. And I was in the security business, so he'd always pretend, I'm sure, to buy a bunch of my stuff for his shop. And he was a little bit of a businessman, and he needed security or whatever, so he told me. And we'd meet up on the side of a road at a gas station and have a coffee and just kind of visit. And we were pretty close, all the way through the 30 years. Many times I was going to quit the organization, and he kept me. He was just a friend. He didn't even. Sometimes he'd tell me. He'd say, "Well, meetings." He says, I'm like a circuit overseer." He says, "Look at me. I'm like a circuit overseer. I go to the meetings every 6 months." That's what he would say. But he'd go once a month or whatever. But he was always busy with life, and I think there's a lot of. Well, I don't know. Are those liberal Jehovah's Witnesses? I was listening on a talk show the other night, and they were talking about liberal and conservative. I always thought fringe, maybe, but not really. Some of the what a righteous, self-righteous, conservative Jehovah's Witness would think is that person's falling out of the truth. But yet, that person on the fringe is probably one of the strongest pillars there. And he's on the fringe because he doesn't want to be bothered with the BS of being an elder, and it's just, he can see it. And we had lots of talks, him and I, and we'd have heart-to-hearts, and we'd talk about stuff like that all the way through. And in fact, I left. When I decided to leave, he thought I was going to come back in, and I didn't, right? And then I got married, and I don't know if I think he came to my wedding. I think. Did he come to my wedding? Ryan. No. We invited him. But anyways. We just had a farm wedding with bales and just of the peace, It's not a big deal. My first wedding was like that in the organization. They wouldn't let an unbaptized publisher marry a baptized person, so you go to the justice of the peace anyways. So why, that's why we have a petition in the bottom of everything. Why have these religions? These religions have rights to marry, but they discriminated against me when I was in the organization. They wouldn't allow me to get married. I had to go I wrote my own wedding talk and had a justice of the peace read it. And we had the wedding in my grandma's house, and we had worldly family there and no witnesses. So it was kind of a sad wedding for her, but for me, I had all my family there. I don't think I was really in that organization fully, because then we come around to when I'm raising my kids, and I put up an education fund for my kids. Where I pay monthly into an education fund. So when the kids are growing up, they want to go do something and get a trade. They got a little bit of money stored up, and it's not a big load on us. They can choose what they want. So I guess that's not a big thing in the JW organization, is education funds, is it? Or was I fringe JW? I don't know. They let me regular pioneer, and I did go up to unassigned territory. No one wanted to do this stuff. It was expensive, and I believed that I was working for God. And so I saved up my money, and I went, got up in the first trip, and then lined up some jobs up there, and the rest's history. You just line some work up, and pays for it every year. It wasn't a big deal, but they made it a big deal, the elders, because they shut it down after a while. So, and that's when I walked out. I realized that I was serving men, wasn't serving God. And this goes into regret. And sometimes we can go through life and we can regret. And why did I waste all those years in that religion? That's a dangerous road to go down, regret. and going back and looking at our life that way, because maybe we were supposed to take that road. Maybe if we didn't go down that road in this sect, this cult, you see right now, what do we see happening? Well, we see that this cult, this religion, if we want to call it that. And you know why they call them religions? And I read this in an article the other day, that if a cult, it's a cult at first, they called it the Russellite cult. But once they make it through a couple of generations, they call them religions because they've kind of made it. Like the Mormons, why did they make it? Well, same reason. The Seventh-day Adventists, the same reason. These are all offshoots off the Catholic, off Catholicism. One religion didn't like hellfire, so they made up something else. But what I come to realize that with religion, I think religion, like, it's just ploy. It's these are all man's things. And the Bible, okay, you want to talk about the Bible? Well, we know that this new world, I have mine over here, but the New World Translation of today that the Jehovah's Witness use is missing 10% of the words of the Old King James. Why? Because of man. Man changed that. In fact, some parts of the Bible, like John 8, it's missing the whole section. We talk about that a lot. Just one of them. There's just so many areas that it's been changed. But we think of just in the last 150 years, the King James Bible has been changed, and the King James is all we had. But it got changed by the Jehovah's Witnesses, Westcott and Horton. So we dig deeper. Well, where did Jehovah's Witnesses get all their ideas to change it that much? Well, it wasn't just Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a lot. And back when they were writing Bibles, back in the 1800s, it was very fashionable to be into cults and Ouija boards and talking to the seance, having a seance. And so Westcott and Hort, if you do the study, I did just recently, these guys were into seances and cults, and they had associations, and it was a big thing. And these guys were rich. This was the well-to-do society in Europe, is where Westcott and Hort were. And they were into cults, seances, and all this stuff. And they had a certain idea how the Bible should be written, and it was different than how the King James Bible was written. And so it took on a different flavor. And this is where all these religions came from. And then the Jehovah's Witnesses needed some further stuff, because that 1914 and the resurrection, and there's no way there's a resurrection after the resurrection's not happening yet on earth. It's going to happen after Armageddon, after 1914, and that all changes so much, right? But basically, they had to make it so that when Jesus died, everything was done. Jesus went to heaven and started his kingdom. That's what the Bible really says, if you read it. Excuse me. But if when Jesus died and the ground was opened and the graveyard opened up, the Bible actually says, the King James says, people actually got up and walked into the city that day. So Jesus performed a resurrection after his death. And now that makes sense. The evildoer on the cross, Jesus says, today you will be with me in paradise. Today. Not today I tell you, or whatever in comma, how the Jehovah's Witnesses changed that. Well, you know where they got that from? The whole change there? Gruber, you got to say that right. Gruber, the Gruber Bible. And thanks to Rose, JW Researcher Rose, she showed us that. She's such a smart lady. I'm not that smart like that. But boy, I watched Rose's one of her programs, and all of a sudden you feel like a scholar. There's some smart JWs, ex-JWs out there right now. You can learn more about Jehovah's Witnesses and the Bible on these ex-JW channels. Now, where are we? We were talking about regret and belief. And that's part of coming out of religion. I found I hid it all. Don't do that. That's like, we're going to talk about that in the scriptures. And we have a special guest coming up. Once we have enough people online, we're going to pull him in. I've been trying to get him in here. His name is Guru, goes by the name Guru. And he's going to read a portion of the King James Bible. He won't use any other Bible but the King James Bible, I guess. So, and he won't use the New King James Bible. He's determined to read the old King James Bible. Have you ever read that? I have it. I'm going to pull it up on a new Bible, and just to see as we go through this with Guru. But anyways, I wanted to talk about belief, regret, and a journey. So we talked a little bit about regret. Not enough about regret, because sometimes we go through life and we start to regret things. Well, what if I did this? What if I became a Mormon? Would it be different? Well, the Mormons only use the King James Bible, and they don't have bound volumes. They only have the Book of Mormon. But it's still a cult. You see, it still follows these guys and people and whatever. But, we could have taken different paths. Or what if we said, well, what if I just was an atheist and I just didn't take any path and I didn't want to believe in anything? Well, atheists still believe in stuff. They believe in science. They believe in lots of atheists are spiritual people. They believe in spirituality. So don't confuse atheism with no belief, because every human being has a belief. And some of the very smartest people on earth are atheists, where you call people that don't believe in religion. And I don't blame them. And I'm going to tell you why. I've kind of got to a point where I don't know what I would call myself, but I certainly don't believe in really organized religion. Now, the word religion we confuse with belief. That's what it means, to believe in a supreme being. But religion, I guess, is a pathway to help us to believe in the supreme being. It's supposed to teach us. Religion is supposed to teach us, organized religion. And but then what I found once I got outside of all the religions, and just like to where I'm at now, is that all the religions kind of want to believe that they're the true ones. Like everyone, and I think that's just normal. I think we all want to believe what our belief is the true belief, or why are we doing it? Or can we have a belief where it doesn't matter, it could be this, could be that, but does it really matter? Well, if you're a Christian, and we're on the Sunday sect show, we're talking about Christianity and we talk about all kinds of stuff. In fact, the only thing I know is the Bible, the Christian Bible. So, and I'm finding I can take that Christian Bible and I can use it to say what I want it to say. If I want to make this Bible say that it's okay for me to go to war and take a machine gun and shoot people, I can take this Bible and make it okay, because it says I can do that. It says it happened, and it says God Yahweh actually he's a God of war. But then if I want to be a Christian, you see, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, if you're a follower of Yahweh or a follower of Jehovah, you're a follower of the God of war. Yahweh's a God of war. But if you're a Christian, you're a follower of Christ. You see, Jehovah's Witnesses are not Christians, they're more Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah, Yahweh, his witnesses. So they're a follower of a God of war. And Jesus, if you're a follower of Jesus, and I learned this later, I didn't realize this as a Jehovah's Witness. As a Jehovah's Witness, I thought I was a Christian. But I was really a Jehovian, I call it, because we're following Jehovah, or this so-called name Jehovah that a Jehovah's Witness has adopted that's supposed to be Yahweh, but it's not. So this is a big subject. I think there's a lot that we're learning about religion, and all the shows, there's lots of shows out there getting Bible scholars in that have read the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they're saying the Bible, they're trying to use it as a history book, but it's not. There's so many holes in it. And it's really not a history book. It's just a book of stories that have spiritual biblical references. And if we really break it down, just give me a second here, my good wife is my producer, Tadasha
Tadashi.
made a donation.
So do the
Oh,
drums.
nice, nice.
So say that's
Well, thank you very much,
Tadashi.
Tadashi. And where are we? Where are we?
I'm going to say this solo's for you.
Yeah, this is for you right here, right here. There. You got a little taste of what's coming up here. So we have a good program coming up here. I'm just getting started. Sometimes I get a little bit long-winded. And thank you very much. We really appreciate that. I was talking about my good wife. She's a muse. She's my muse. She's my producer. And a lot of these ideas come from her. She, when she was growing up, in her environment, and we talk about that more so now than we ever have in our lives. 10 years we spent together, didn't talk. We just kind of lived life. And but now that a year ago she told me to start writing down what's inside my head, and I started writing it down, and it was amazing what was inside my head. And she was really open about it and started asking me questions. Well, what does the paradise earth mean? What does 144,000 going to heaven mean? What does all this stuff mean? You see, there was no books in our house because when I split, I took all the JW books and burnt them all, everything, burnt them. Bonfire one night, New Year's, and I poured gasoline on it and burnt it. And those damn books wouldn't burn. I think they were demonized. I'm, some of them don't burn because they're so thick, eh? But if you're a JW, you'd say, I poured gasoline on this shit and it didn't burn. And that's what, back in the 80s, if you had a cross, I had my grandmother gave me some nice little crosses on wood, and I carried it. I thought it was cool, as a cross, Jesus. No, you got to burn that. And they said, if you pour gas on it and it doesn't burn, it's because the demons are really in there hard. Like I came into the organization in a very red-necked demon, everything's demonized. Is that the way it is all over the world? I don't know. That's how I came in, through that kind of it's a cult, right? No beards, can't have a beard. You got to be clean shaven. And I used to question that beard thing back at the beginning, and I said, well, this doesn't make sense. Jesus has beards. You guys use them in all your pictures. And, it's like this. And they gave me an example. A circuit overseer came down to Lethbridge. They had to clean Lethbridge up, they said. This is what they were telling me in the 80s. They had to clean Lethbridge up. There was an apostate down there. And here it's Mr. Penton, the historian, that is a university, he works at the university in Lethbridge. And all he wanted to do is get his son going to school at the university. And he ran into such a controversy there that they ousted him. You can read about him. And he's right here in Alberta. I was just a 6-hour drive to Lethbridge from where I came into the truth, in a little town called Red Deer, Alberta. But everything was demonized. And, it's sad when that happens. And I think those days are done. I think that was the olden days. That was the horse and buggy days. I think in the modern days now, I think that since Jehovah's Witnesses have been on the internet with Zoom and for their meetings through the virus, I think the virus got them all waking up a bit. And you know what I think? I think all of society is starting to wake up outside of religion. All of society, not just the Jehovah's Witnesses, but everyone. And I've been running some thumbnails. We can take a look. I don't know if it'll show up on my screen, but I've been running some thumbnails on Norway. And you can look at my channel. Just subscribe if you haven't, and just go into my channels, and there's playlists. And if you look through the playlists, there's one called Informative and News. And I put all the news stuff in there. And I'm trying to keep my news stuff out during the week. And so what we'll do during the week is we'll try to cover that. And it depends on what my producer throws in front of me. I get these little cards and an email. Stuff comes from all over. Like, there's connections from all over the world where she was showing me on YouTube, and it gives a chart of all the countries, and so we know the age and demographics. And that's why we're here on Sunday, because Sunday is supposed to be one of the best times for the XJW community. And so we want to reach out to you guys, the audience, and we have some fun stuff coming up here. And I'm just getting started. We're going to do some fun stuff here, but I want to beat these subjects up just a little bit more, make sure we covered them. And then we're going to get to the fun stuff. Regret. So never ever regret. If you find yourself going down a road, and it's a road in our minds, and if we find ourselves going back there, we can't change it. And there's no use regretting it. So what we can do is we can come out, and this is part of a healing process. Once we heal, now what can we do with our former life, and what can we do? Now I have some ideas. I've always been an idea person, and I have some ideas, and I'm going to run them by you guys as the audience here today. And so when we start looking at our former life, it's regret sometimes, or we feel victimized. And we were running a Survivor, and we didn't get a lot of response on the Survivor live. I get it. Not everyone wants to come onto TV. Not everyone even wants their voice coming onto TV. But I got an idea. I got another idea. And Survivor, everyone's kind of tired of poor me. We can hear a certain amount of it, but what are we doing next? What's our next thing? How are we healing? How are we being survivors, not victims, survivors? So a survivor means that we're going through a healing process. So what are we doing with the healing process? Here it is. My good wife says to me, it's like this. She says to me, when this is a year ago, because you see, when I left the organization, there's a certain amount of it. We're like a caged animal. You see, we're like a caged animal. So when I left, I went to, my uncle says, go to check the blues on White. Go check the country. You might like the country bar on White. So I go in there and check it out. And I did these clubs, and I started volunteering dancing at these clubs. And, there's certain perks, but not many. But anyways, it was something to do. It was a purpose. So then I did this outdoor concert, and sure enough, bingo, gold mine, met my wife. And then I quit. I was done in clubs. I was even doing legions and going country dancing with the older people, and just to do something. And I even considered going on a cruise ship. In fact, I wrote that in one of my stories. And but anyways, that's another story. So if you go onto my site, you'll see stories. I write stories. I started writing poetry. I didn't know I could write stories and poetry. Some of us, we become like a wild animal. We're caged up. Our minds were caged up. We weren't allowed to believe anything, to go any further. And once you unlock all of that, and it takes layers and takes a bit of work, you unlock it, we start to run. And so inside of our minds, and we talk about the human brain on this channel. We had some thumbnails. You can go back and check them. They're quite recent. And we talk about how being a Jehovah's Witness stunts our brain, stunts our synapses, because we're always in fight and flight mode, because the end's coming any moment now. And it creates an adrenal rush. And it's a rush. So there's a certain amount of a rush being a Jehovah's Witness. And it's an adrenal rush, really hard on the system. I suffered 2 heart attacks, and it's not nice. I feel where I'm at now, I feel great. I feel like I'm starting to heal. And internally, we'll start to heal internally, because it changes how our brain functions once we unlock these locks that the indoctrination puts us into. And I began to tell you, this friend of mine would come by, and every year he'd come up, and I got into the solar. So next thing you know, he's buying solar stuff off me. And we'd sit there for hours, and he'd say, he says, coming and talking to you is like talking to a circuit overseer or someone. You're so nice to talk to. And I kind of felt good about it, I guess, a little bit. But he goes home and he's arguing, and because he doesn't agree with all this stuff. And I think that there's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses like that brother, a friend of mine. Now, since 2018, I don't know what they said about apostates, but I do know what they said, and I'm going to show you in a bit. But it was like poison. It was like poison once the governing body started dropping the apostate talks. And so this friend no longer would even answer my text messages. It's like you're gone, and they just won't respond. And a year goes by, and in the COVID, you're kind of lonely. You're at home and texting, and no one will talk to you. It's like you're done. History. They wrote you off. So you get wrote off. I don't know. You say one or two things the wrong way. You say something wrong against the governing body, and you're wrote off. So I think it even goes further. Sometimes they talk between congregations, and they find ways to figure you out. So on the inside, you're looking, well, that guy, he fell out of the truth. Poor brother, poor pioneer, he fell out of the truth. He's demonized. He has to be demonized. He got into that Indian stuff and he's demonized. That's what they said. So so then you live with that. So then I'm living with feeling like I'm condemned, demonized, and it's makes you angry. I started to get angry, and my wife noticed it, and I still was holding it all inside. Didn't realize I had PTSD. In fact, I had C-PTSD, complex PTSD. It's like coming out of a war and you haven't dealt with all of this Armageddon stuff yet. So then I started writing. The first 3 months I wrote 170 pages, and I burned it. I deleted it, gone. Read it, couldn't publish it. And then my wife says, why don't you make it all fictional? Make a fictional story and make it kind of fun. So I did that, and it turned into 300 pages. It's a fun story. It's where I go to heaven. All the things you could imagine that you want to do. I wanted to go to heaven. I wanted to take the governing body up to heaven in front of Jesus and watch them get worked over by Jesus and the 12 apostles up there, is what I had. So I made it mid-heaven, because how Revelation talks about mid-heaven. Well, what in the heck's mid-heaven? There's heaven, mid-heaven, and heaven. So I made this mid-heaven, like a little platform floating around Earth. Invisible. It was cloaked, this platform. Cloaking's possible. So this thing's cloaked. No one can see it, but it's there. And in a dream, Michael the Archangel, not Jesus, this is Michael the Archangel, nothing to do with Jesus in my story. He's Michael, and he's a powerful archangel. Takes me up there. And it's kind of a fun ride. It was a big part of the book is following Michael through all these tests and trials. And when you're coming out of the Jehovah's Witness religion, you're kind of undoing layers. You're kind of testing yourself, and you're taking little tests. So I wrote about all that in a story form, and it was fun. I had a lot of fun with it. But anyways, regret, don't regret it. Take everything we have now and how can we use it? And we're in a time right now that I feel, my supposition, these are all suppositions, that religions are crumbling. And I think we see it happening. Governments, Norway, Holland, Sweden, they're all examining religions, including the Catholics, and they're saying we can't even use these organizations to marry people. We have gay, lesbian marriages nowadays. Religion's horse and buggy. Why do we have it? And they costing the taxpayer a pile of money. A pile of money. We had one video showing how New York State, 30% of their land tax is non-taxable because of, I hate to say it, Jehovah's Witnesses among other religions, the Jews, the Jewish religions. So the only ones that are not transparent are the Jehovah's Witnesses. We have another video showing that. The Jews are, in fact, transparent. You can look at what they do with their money, or their charity, I guess. So some religions are transparent, and they do try to help people, but not the Jehovah's Witnesses. And the further we get outside of this, the clearer it seems that these religions are going to crumble. We don't need them anymore. 71% of New Yorkers couldn't give a rat's. behind about churches. They don't care. They drive by them. They're big structures. Oftentimes they look at them. They wonder who's paying the bills, who's lighting those big cathedrals up. Like, come on, guys. Why are we, I don't know. But anyways, I think they're museums now. I think they become museums. Kingdom halls are thrift stores. And we ran a series of videos away at the beginning, New Light we called it, and we said all the Jehovah's Witnesses are going to plant trees and turn kingdom halls into thrift stores or sell them off. So, and help the poor. Could you imagine if the governing body came out and said, we were wrong, all this stuff, this is nonsense. They fire Stephen Latt. He's an ex-guy. That's got to go. He's a really bad cookie. We ran some videos on Stephen Latt, and I think he's the next guy. So maybe the younger generation will get in, and maybe they'll turn it around a bit, get rid of the blood transfusion nonsense, get rid of the shunning nonsense, quit judging, and let Jesus be the judge. Be a Jesus follower rather than a Jehovian. Not a quit being at war. They're at war with every country.
Hey,
every country.
Sorry, maybe mention how on 6 screens last night we heard that some JWs have been told to soften their position.
Yeah. So yeah, we were watching 6 screen last night, and some JWs, some insiders were saying that at the circuit assembly level, they're told to soften their approach on
homosexuality.
On homosexuality, yeah. Alternate lifestyles.
And the circuit overseer was there.
Yeah, so I think what they were showing, Rick was showing how Jehovah's Witnesses will go with the flow. So it's not really based on Russell had the truth, Rutherford had the truth, Nor had the truth. It's not really based on that. It's based on how long can they use all those tactics to keep controlling people. And I think we're in the information age. I think it's done. They cannot control people, but they can soften their approach. They're going to maybe check, we're not going to discriminate in Norway. They're going to try that, maybe. We'll see. It's not in our hands. We had another video showing how Romans talks about Romans 1 to the book of Romans 13, chapter 13, verses 1. Read the whole chapter. But I think it's a good little formula to say the governments are going to take care of it. If we're hiding pedophilia and things like that from the government, we're going to crumble. That's what that tells me. So, and we see it happening today. So we don't have to do the work, but I think it's good for us to be there to help ones coming out. And I think there's a lot coming out, a lot of old friends, like I talked about my old friend. And, when these guys realize and finally wake up, they're going to realize that, they're going to feel bad. They're going to be afraid. These are multi-generation people that it's inbred into the people. This Rutherford trance, it's been in there generation after generation. And some people are disfellowshipped, reinstated, disfellowshipped, reinstated, disfellowshipped, reinstated. Some people ride the wave, but they always stay in it. It's a dangerous place to be because you always believe it, I guess. Anyways, regret. So we quit regretting and we start looking at our past, how we're going to help people. I believe people are going to come out in the droves. You might have a congregation with 2 or 3, 4, and then they start talking 5 or 6 and they leave in 12s, dozens. I think dozens will leave in groups. And they'll just start getting out. They'll start looking in on these channels. These channels will become popular. That's my supposition. There'll be some regret helping people to heal, coming out, realizing that we're all under some kind of a cult, trance, sect. We believe in something. Look at all the wars religions has cost humanity over the years. If we didn't have all these divisions, why would we need to spend all the money on all these armaments, you see? So first of all, religion kind of has to go. That's maybe a broad way of looking at it. But the justices of the peace, the governments are providing funerals for us. There's funeral homes. There's justice of the peace. Churches are... I was doing my best. I was a baptized Jehovah's Witness. Couldn't get married in the church. Couldn't get married. It was humiliating. So anyways, we're going to move on. If we treat it as a journey, then it changes it. Now, One of the things I enjoyed when I went to these assemblies, these big assemblies they do, Jehovah's Witnesses, and maybe if we get comments coming in, I'll see if I can see some of the comments. And what about top chat? I'll look here. I don't know how that works. That's how it works, I guess. Top chat. Okay, so anyways, when we think of these big assemblies, I used to go to them, and didn't you like the dramas the most? Like, I used to like the dramas, and I'd sleep through a lot of the other stuff. Sometimes I'd write little stories. My kids were always elbowing me because I was sleeping all the time. I was so tired, working and trying to make a living. I wasn't an elder. I was a good publisher all my life. For a certain period of time, I was able to be a ministerial servant. And then I asked too many questions, I guess. And so then they said I'd never be an elder. And then they let me regular pioneer. And then after 3.5 years of that, they said, no, we don't even want you preaching. So they gave me a stop preaching order. That's another story. And you'll see it on a series I have on my playlist called Poor Pioneer. And so I'm trying to incorporate some of his experiences. I got about 13 episodes put aside. It takes a bit of work to make them. They're satires. And then Mr. Fix-It's another one. He goes into the governing body. And you know how, like I wrote in my book, I want to take these guys right up to Jesus. And so I did in the book. And but on the show, I want to go right in front of their face and talk to them personally. So with some of the new technology we have, we can do some pretty neat stuff. And we call them green screening. And so if you were to send me a green screen, just a green screen, if you bought a can of paint and just painted a bit of your wall green, and take a video camera, put your video camera there and take a picture of you. So let's say you want to see yourself walk in and talk to the governing body on some part. It could be as easy as that. We could green screen you in. You could do anything you want. But I think it's like dramas. You know how we make dramas? And my wife was really good at drama. She was, when she went through high school, she was into drama, and she was so good at it that she got to go down on this place in Edmonton. In Edmonton, there's 1 million people. It's a place called White Avenue. We talked about that, where I went country dancing. But there's all kinds of artsy, fartsy stuff on White Avenue. And she got to do drama out there. And she was in some kind of a drama thing. And she could have went quite a ways with drama. So she was good at it. She can remember things good. So she makes up good parts. And I'm thinking, what we're really doing is ex-Jehovah's Witness assembly parts. That's drama. The best part of the assembly was the drama. So so that's what I think. There could be all kinds of little things built into the dramas. And maybe rather than you guys given your experience, and maybe you're tired of all this, poor me, I don't know. Maybe you want to give it to the governing body on a video and walk in and do that. Well, you can. And we can do that. We have some technology here. All you got to do is send me in your video, talk to my good wife on email, and make a green screen slide of yourself. So today we have a guest, and we're going to pull this guest in, and we're going to we covered everything here, I think, yeah. Assembly parts, that. So what I want to pull in here, just onto my screen here, I'm going to pull this out here. Let me look here, topic. Now, this is a video.
Apostates do not drift away from the truth. They deliberately decide to go out from among God's people. Apostates are not sincere in their expressions. Their aim is to manipulate your mind and undermine your faith. They are liars and deceivers, bent on destroying your relationship with Jehovah God and His Son Christ Jesus. Human apostates are mentally diseased, and they try to infect others with their disloyal teachings. With good reason, then, the Bible tells us to avoid apostates just as we would avoid a person who was infected with a contagious, deadly disease.
So I don't want to play the whole video. It's only a 3-minute video, and I think this is a really good video. I was actually looking for all these videos on how the governing body views apostates, and this is right at district assemblies. It's not just in their broadcasts. So this is a 2013 district convention, and so then I'm wondering, okay, well, there's my answer. There's why my good friend quit talking to me, because I started talking like an apostate, and I'm mentally diseased. This is the instructions that they're getting. This is what they're told at these assemblies about us. So we now, what I realize is now we are unique. We're unique people. We're actually people that, as they come out and realize they're going to come to us apostates. So you can be part of this, and we can make our own assemblies. But anyways, this guy here, I wanted to talk about him. And I like to talk about some of the people out there that are really doing some work. Maybe you've subscribed to this fella. He's called Preach from the Housetops. Now he only has but he has 988 subscribers. He's almost at 1,000. And all of us creators can't get anything from our channels unless we have 1,000. And then we have to have 4,000 watch hours as well, banked up. But I'm sure this fella does. He's really good. But this, among a bunch of his other videos, are very well done. He's a very good creator, so I'm sure he'd appreciate it if we could go online and go onto his channel and subscribe if you can, because it really helps the creators out. And this fella, and watch this video about apostates. It's only a 3-minute video, and it really, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because we shouldn't. We want to get you to go to his site and see the whole thing. And he really did it. He summed it all up. This is how the governing body. So every time I wonder why I'm doing this work, I go and watch his video, and it reminds me how the governing body feels about us. But I don't feel about the same way about the governing body. In fact, even if you read my book, Jesus gave him a chance. You'll have to read it. It's funny, actually. But the governing body, they're people just like me. And I believe they're under the Rutherford trance to a certain extent. But I'm wondering, the more we get into this time that we're living, like, how could they not know that they're under a trance and that this is all BS? But sooner or later, the courts will wake them up. That's happening. This is just some of the videos. I wanted to take you to my channel here. There's something new on my channel. This is another way. We don't ask for donations or anything like that. We just do it because we can, and we have a lot of fun with it. And it's part of my healing, part of my fixing my faith. I started this channel to fix my faith, to figure out why my head was screwed up. So we end up writing books and having fun with it. And I started this back in June, this channel. And so, of course, my wife, she's like a good producer. She sees all of this stuff coming together. So she started a store. And if you click into the store, this is a way you can support us, and you can get something for your money. You can buy some T-shirts. So all you got to do is hit I think home here, or no, store. Just hit an item, and it'll take you right to the store. You can look at T-shirts. You can look at all the designs here, and this shows you that there's different designs. My wife put most of these together. I might have put one or two together. Live your life with love. You can get them on T-shirts, mugs, all kinds of stuff. So take a look. Don't forget to take a look at the store. I'm going to move on here on the screen, and we're going to move over to Proverbs 27. But I have it set up for Proverbs 27 in the easy to read version, because we are guest speakers coming on right now. We're ready. You guys ready for the guest speaker? So I'm going to put up for the little part of the guest speaker, I'm going to put the topic back on. And I want to introduce you to Guru.
Bernard. And I'm from Vernobia. Yes, we will do a reading from the wise book. The wise book of Proverbs, chapter 27. This was a wise man who wrote this book, and he gained his insight from God. So let us together read God's wisdom, penned by this wise king, some call Solomon. Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips. A stone is heavy, and the sand is weighty, but the fool's wrath is heavier than them both.
Okay, well, thank you, Guru. So we're going to take a look at these first scriptures here. Here, topic. I got them on the screen here, screen capture. There we are. So the first two scriptures, or the first three scriptures, we're going to take this three at a time. And if you haven't looked at Proverbs 27, when I was looking at it, there's some good stuff in there. And you know, we talk on this channel quite a bit about when you get out of religion, and you know, maybe you're looking at religion a little bit different. It doesn't mean that the Bible, as a holy book, that there isn't some good stuff in there. So I like some of the King Solomon's information. But in easier English, Bernard's going to read it from the old King James version, and it's nice. It has a nice poetry to it. But I was reading through it and I couldn't figure some of it out, so I went to this really easy to read version, and basically it's just saying never brag about what we're going to do, you know, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And when I think about that right out the gate, that scripture, if we're bragging about tomorrow, or we think of the Jehovah's Witness religion, you know, they're talking about the paradise and tomorrow, the paradise, always talking about tomorrow, never about right now. What are we doing right now? Are we helping the poor? Hey, my service today, hey, I'll meet you, Joe. We're going down to the food bank. Or, oh, Joe, you're going right out in the street and you're going to meet some poor and you're going to help hand out some food. You know, none of that stuff at Jehovah's Witness organization. It's always something about in the future. You see, they're taking you in your mind, and your mind is never living in reality. We're in the present. So Jesus, when he taught, he had people living in the present, and he gave that by example. So that's one thing. Never brag about what we're going to do in the future. We don't have any idea what tomorrow will bring. So much truth to that. And then the second one was never praise yourself. Let others do the praise. You know, so we don't want to be a braggart. Jehovah's Witnesses, the organization, gets up there and say, look at us, look at us. And now I realize that they're actually feeding information, you think, to Bitter Winter and places like that. So they're shooting all this propaganda out. Look, we won $1 million award now. It's on their site for this $168 million building that they built in New York, right down the street from their headquarters. It's all off grid. It's all solar, geothermal. So they're now into real estate. It's all condominiums. Anybody can rent it. And we wonder, they're building it now. It's all got approved, so we did an article on that. But so now they're talking about their $1 million award. It's all over their site. But yet, as Jehovah's Witnesses, growing up, no one can go into contests. I want to go into a contest, you can't. You know, your kids want to go into sports. no, it's not good. We don't go into contests because, well, we don't want to be brave. They'll use a scripture. They'll even use a scripture and tell us. But yet, they're the biggest hypocrites right now. So, do you see this kind of stuff when you're in it? Maybe not. Now, the last one is: a stone is heavy, sand is hard to carry, but the irritation caused by a fool is much harder to bear. So, yeah, irritation is a hard thing. So this is what we have to bear. We're ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. This scripture really applies to us because it's irritating. It's irritating when we have to get this irritation that we carry from this religion that we were a part of. So, yeah, by a fool. So who's the fool here? The governing body. They're the fool, and they fooled us. This is the problem. So, anyways, we're going to carry on. The next one's on anger, so we'll have our guest speaker carry on here.
Wrath is cruel, and anger is outrageous. But who is able to stand before envy? Open rebuke is better than secret love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful.
Okay, thank you, Guru. Looking at the next part, anger is cruel, can destroy like a flood, but jealousy is much worse. It is. If you're younger, we go through these periods of jealousy when we like someone and maybe they like someone else. The school ground stuff. So we go through some of that. We learn that, but it doesn't go away. We can become jealous as we get older. We can be jealous because so and so has a new car and I have to drive an old piece of junk. So we can be jealous that way. So anger is cruel and can destroy like a flood, but jealousy is not good. It's not good for us. Open criticism is better than hidden love. That's the next one, verse 5. Open criticism is better than hidden love. So if you hide something, hide love. Open criticism is better. So what? Okay, let's think about open criticism. Jehovah's Witnesses, the governing body, no, you can't talk, you can't criticize, you can't be a critical thinker. But yet, the Bible here says in verse 5, open criticism is better. Okay, verse 6. Did he read that? You can trust what your friend says, even when it hurts. But your enemies want to hurt you, even when they act nice. So just some really good advice. Okay, here.
The full soul longs for honeycomb, but to the hungry soul every bitter thing is sweet. As a bird that wandereth from her nest, so is the man that wandereth from his place. Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart, but sweetness of a man's friend is hearty counsel.
Okay, thank you for that. So now we go with verse 7. When you are full, you will not eat honey, but when you are hungry, even something bitter tastes good. Even something bitter tastes good. Have you ever been hungry? My good wife tells me I should make myself go hungry at least once a week. That's kind of a Catholic thing, eh? They don't eat, and a Jewish thing. So I think there's a lot we can learn coming out of religion. Even some of the other cultures, they fast, and part of how they do things. So, and then when you do eat something like something that's bitter, it tastes good. Maybe we eat too much sugar. I'm not sure what that's saying. If you have any comments, we welcome them. The next one is: a man away from home is like a bird away from a nest. Don't you ever feel like that? You stay at all these hotels, you go on holidays, and I just can't wait to get back home. There's just something about home. That's just like a bird in a nest. And the ninth one there, perfume and incense makes you feel good, and so good advice from a friend. So we can always take good advice. It helps us to be open, and some really good advice there. Okay, so we'll carry on here.
Thine own friend and thy father's friend forsake not. Neither go into thy brother's house in the days of thy calamity. For better is a neighbor that is near than a brother far off. My son, be wise, and make my heart glad, that I may answer him that reproaches me. A prudent man foreseeth the evil, and hideth himself. But the simple pass on and are punished.
Okay. So when we talk about friends in verse 10 there, don't forget your own friends or your father's friends. Now, this is some serious counsel that the Jehovah's Witnesses really taught me the wrong thing. And this is the first time I read this from the Bible and really understood it. But my father's friends and my parents' friends, if I did forget them, because when you become a Jehovah's Witness, everything's worldly and everything out there is controlled by Satan. So you're leaving families and friends, and they use other scriptures. And that's the thing I said about the Bible. You can make the Bible say anything you want if you know enough about it. And that's where Russell and Rutherford, they were just master magicians. If you really want to know who they were like magicians, illusionists, and some of the other channels, they talk the same way. And that's what we see. When you get out there, they're using things as an illusion and getting you off the track. And isn't that what we think were they're Hort and Westcott and Grieber, those guys? That Grieber was another one that was a cult. And if you research Grieber in Jehovah's Witnesses' own site and put Grieber in an occult, it shows the whole story. It's interesting. We ran some videos on that. But yet they recognize it's a cult, that these guys were into occult and Grieber, and yet they've taken their doctrine about Jesus in this ground splitting open from Grieber. Grieber is the only reference they have as to why the New World Translation is translated that way. You see, if Jesus didn't have the power to resurrect after he died, you see, Jehovah's Witnesses are saying Jesus didn't have that power until 1914, till after 1914, till after Armageddon. You see, Jehovah's Witnesses are trying to make this their own story, their own fictional story. But if you read the Bible, King James Version, the ground opened up, Jesus died, and people walked out into town. And that's why Jesus was a threat. Jesus was powerful. He was a god. They knew. Many Romans became believers. There's other stories, stories of Mary. Jesus hung around the prostitutes. He felt the prostitutes were good people. This prostitute came in and spent all this oil and rubbed his feet. But yet, he was condemned for associating with the prostitute. The guy that condemned him, he said, I walked into your house and you did nothing. My feet are all chapped and dry and you did nothing. But this prostitute, she looked after me. You see, he slapped these guys in the face. He goes into their temple and tips over their money carts and says, you guys, you hypocrites, chased out all the animals they're selling. He says, my Father's house isn't this. And you see, if Jesus came today, the religions today, he'd do the same thing. He'd tip over the money carts, and that's what's happening. I think Jesus is coming today, and he's working, he says, I'm working through the governments. He's tipping over the money carts. You're no longer a charity in Norway. You can't marry lesbians and gays in Sweden. You're no longer a charity. Canada, we have a petition here. You go into the descriptions. We have a petition in Canada. We need just a few more signatures, and we can take this to our parliament, and we can say, you're no longer a charity because you discriminate, even against minors. So many things. So they can be a religion, but why are we sacrificing all our tax-paid money to these religions? All of them. And this is what is starting to happen, I believe, right in the time that we're living. So now let's get I get carried away here. Perfume and incense makes you feel good, and so does good advice from a friend. So now, verse 10, we talked about don't forget the friends of your father. So that's what happens. Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're from the world and you come into the religion, they're going to make you forget your friends of your father. And then if you ever need help from them, you can't get it because you forgot them. And then in verse 11, my son, be wise. This will make me happy, that I'll be able to answer those who criticize me. So that's really God, Jesus, God talking to you and me. This is what we're doing. On the outside, we're just telling it the way it is. We don't hate anybody like they say about us. We don't hate the governing body. They're just people. They were confused like us at one time. They're still confused apparently, but they'll be woke up or kicked out or whatever, put in jail maybe. Like these things are going to happen. So my son, be wise. So verse 12, wise people see trouble coming and get out of the way, but fools go straight to trouble and suffer for it. I think that's where we're at here. So we'll have Guru read.
Take his garment, that is surety for a stranger, and take a pledge of him for a strange woman. He that is blessed his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it shall be counted as a curse to him. A continual dropping in a rainy day and a contentious woman are alike.
Okay. So verse 13, when you deal with a stranger, get something from him and any other foreigners to make sure he will pay you. Just some good business practices. Like get some chattel if you're going to do business. And sometimes brothers, in the Jehovah's Witness religion, they would do business in certain ways. They were told to put it in writing and all those things too. But I found in the Jehovah's Witness religion, I had any business thing I had issues. There was lots of issues. If I wanted to because I had worldly people working for me, I couldn't bring anything to the elders because it has to be at the mouth of two witnesses, two actually Jehovah's Witnesses. So the guys I was up against was another two elders. And they were two witnesses, two Jehovah's Witnesses. And I had just two worldly people, and they wouldn't allow my worldly people to come in. So that was interesting. Now, verse 14, I thought that was just good advice. Don't wake up your neighbor early in the morning with a shout of, good morning, at 5 in the morning. Don't do that. Or, they will treat it like a curse, not a blessing. So some of us neighbors like to sleep in. We always worry about our roosters crowing in the summer. Now, a complaining wife, that can apply to a husband. It seems like the Bible always is making women look like the ones. But if you were in my household, I'm the complaining wife. I'm the one with all the complaints. My wife is always the one that's putting out the dish, collecting the dripping water, and trying to help me to change my focus. So it goes both ways. So let's carry on and have Guru need to read the next little bit.
Whoever hideth her hideth the wind, and the ointment of his right hand which betrayeth itself. Iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Whoso keepeth the fig tree shall eat the fruit thereof. So he that waiteth on his master shall be honored. As in water, face answereth to face. So the heart of a man to man. Hell and destruction are never full. So the eyes of a man are never satisfied.
Okay, so a few more scriptures there. Iron sharpens iron, so friends keep each other sharp. That's what we do on the XGW channel. We're allowed to criticize the Bible even, say it's full of holes, doesn't make sense. Dinosaurs don't make sense in there. It's stories. It's people wrote these stories, and God's words are in there. So it's up to us to figure that out, right? But so iron sharpens iron. Friends keep each other sharp. People who take care of fig trees are allowed to eat the fruit. So if we work, if we take care of things, we're allowed to eat. That's just common sense. And it talks about, if we go to work in the same way people who take care of their masters, well, that's kind of going to work and doing your thing at work, right? That's what's going to put food on the table. And then your heart reflects the kind of person you are. So I might have went too far there. But you notice the Old English? Some of it's hard to understand. Let's just keep going.
As the finding port for silver, and the furnace for gold, so is a man to his praise. Thou, though, shouldest brave a fool in mortar among wheat with pestle, yet will not his foolishness depart from him. Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds. For riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure to every generation.
Okay, you see my face is darkening up here. It's I think it's the light. We get a lot of light coming in. I'm just going to try to adjust it. It's afternoon here. There. Is that better? Yeah. So we have the south. I have a window right in front of me. I have a green screen behind me. So now the camera, it's kind of funny. It's a laptop camera. There. I can turn the light back on here in a bit. We'll see. I think the sun just went down. That's the problem. So probably in the new place we'll just have no windows. But anyways, we're going to have Guru read a little bit more here.
The hay appeareth, and the tender grass showeth itself, and the herbs of the mountains are gathered. The lambs are for thy clothing, and the goats are the price of the field. And thou shalt have goats, milk enough for thy food, for the food of thy household, and for the maintenance of thy maidens. Well, thank you, my friends. Those are wise words from a wise king that recorded them as he was inspired by God. So I hope these words will help you on your passing journey, and you too will be able to find and seek out the thoughts of God. Let us pray. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Well, thank you, Guru. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and that's a bit of green screening. It shows you how you can send in a movie of yourself. We can put things together, just like a drama. It's three-dimensional, and that's the idea of a green screen. You can walk into an assembly program and pat the governing body on the shoulder, and we slow them down, quieten them up while you give your speech right to their face. Maybe you want to do that. I like to do that. But anyways, that's it for the green screen, the concept there. I had one other thing. You ever, when you think of freeing your mind, that's coming out of the Jehovah's Witness religion. That's what we have to do, is free our mind. So I plugged that in, and up comes this guy by the name of Bob Marley. Freeing your mind, and big on him. That's all I could find on the internet. And so I started reading about Bob Marley, and of course I know a little bit about Bob Marley. I know that he kind of plays reggae music, but I didn't realize that he did this last song about breaking free. It was a redemption song, and I read through it. There's a lot on there. I'm going to put the link to it here. but talking about how we have to free our mind, and it made me think of Jehovah as a ex-Jehovah's Witness, and our mind is controlled, and so he did a lot of work, and there's a lot of activists that uses his song, to be free, freeing us, and it starts with freeing your mind. And freeing your mind from whatever indoctrination you're under. So in this case, the indoctrination, I think he was doing a lot of work for the black people. And and one of it, what caught me, what was interesting, I think here it is. The prophet in question is Marcus Garvey, a black nationalist leader who can claim a huge asset in the lyrics that define this song. And this is an extract of a speech he gave in Nova Scotia, right here in Canada in 1937. And he says, "We are going to emancipate ourselves from the mental slavery, because whilst others might free the body, none but ourselves can free the mind. Mind is your only ruler, sovereign. The man who is not able to develop and use his mind is bound to be the slave of the other man who uses his mind." And I thought, that's brilliant. That's really what the Jehovah's Witnesses are doing to us, or did to us. And they were using, they put us under slavery using our mind. They capsulated our mind. And once they owned our mind, we became their soldiers. And so this was about emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. So that's what this song is about. It's up to us to free our minds, and it takes a bit of work. Reading, get onto these shows, have some fun, make this fun. So I just scrolled down this article a bit. We don't have time. It's already 4:30, so I'm going to end up, and I'm only allowed to end up with this one song here. You guys wanted to probably hear another song, right? So I'm going to leave Bob Marley's picture on there for this next song. And, oh no, I can't, sorry. So what I have to do here, topic, I'll put that back on. There we go. So I'm going to pull up this song here, and this is the next song. And okay, now this is what you'd think would happen at like an ex-Jehovah's Witness assembly, right? This is like an assembly, a part on the assembly. So we're going to all get up and dance, aren't we? So you guys are at home right now. And free your mind. Imagine all of this stuff that's locked up inside ourselves. So we free our minds. And once we free our minds, we can run and fly like a bird. And we can do whatever we want, because we're no longer bound to that indoctrination. So here we go. Let's free our mind and enjoy. So I'm going to say bye for now. Until next time, bye for now. But if you like this, my producer said I can only run one show. But if you really like this, I can run another song. But only by your request, perhaps, if she says it's okay. But I'm only run one song. And what I did in these songs, and we can do anything in it. You can put the ocean in there. You can do that. You can even change where we're at. So let's say, I kind of like the ocean. Let's say we're going to end up here, okay? So this is what we're going to do.
My sound on the people sound. My sound on the
Okay.
sound. My sound is a jungle sound. My sound make the crowd gather round. Sound and me say he run the town. My sound is a jungle sound. a bad boy sound. Bad boy sound and this a bad boy sound. Jump on sound and me say sound like clown. Bad boy sound and me say we run the town. Bad boy sound and this a bad boy sound. Bad boy sound and this a bad boy sound. Wow, tell you, yeah.